So I think we're ready to start. It all looks good. Madame Zoom didn't tell you that you're being recorded, but you are being recorded. I don't know if that covers me legally for anything, but you are being recorded. But this isn't customer service. It's saying that your call may be recorded for quality control purposes. Welcome everyone who's here today live on the Zoom, and also welcome to all of those joining us later through YouTube. This is the third of our Chenrezig practice instructions, third of 7. And today I must get going. In the last 2 sessions, I've talked about the practice quite a bit. There were things I felt I needed to say, and I said them. But today we really need to steam ahead with how you actually do the practice, step by step. And then especially because next Saturday is the first Saturday of the month. It's our monthly Tonglen meeting. So there's no Chenrezig instruction next Saturday. You'll have homework to do in between now and then, and I hope you do it. So I must give you enough information so that you've got no excuse for not doing wonderful homework and coming back in a fortnight ready for the next step. So as always, we start with our excellent motivation in deep appreciation for receiving the transmission of the Buddha's teachings. Even though I'm only me, Ken, this is a proper transmission. I received these teachings from a very great Manipa, Lama Lancho, also from the first Kalu Rinpoche, many instructions from Akon Rinpoche, and of course empowerments from the 16th Jawa Karmapa, and so on. It's a wonderful thing for me to share these teachings with you. And we start with deep appreciation, Dharma joy, and turning our hearts in loving care to everyone, wishing to bring benefit to everyone, and in particular to those that we know are part of our own karma, our parents, our siblings, our children, those in this life we've had really intense interaction with, those who helped us, those who harmed us, and then for all beings. So we start with a few prayers, but we come back to this actually in the practice instructions. Thank you. Sonje chodon soje chonam la jancho badu dane chapsanje dagi jinso jipe sonam je rola penchara sonje dropara shu Semchen tamche dewa dang dewe judang dempara juche Dogmal dang dogmal ji judang tralwara juche Dongal me pen dewa dampa dang men tralwara joche. Nyerin chatan ne tang tralwe tanyom chempola ne para jorachi. Beata shame shamevati shameta shatru am kure marajite karota ke ore. Te jovati olo yane beshudan male malapana ye kukure kaka grase grasana muke paramuke amuke shamedawane sawa graha bandanane negre eta sava para prawadina vimukta marapasha Savita Buddha Mudra Anakatita Savamare Putsarita Parishuddhe Bigashantu Savamara Kama. Palen Sawen Lama Rinpoche Dagye chewara pende den shola. Kadren chempo gone jizonte. Kuson tujin madrup. Sandu sol. So having talked about the practice in the last two sessions, where it came from, who it came from, and the way it's structured, and I think we finished last week with the three qualities that we should have in Vajrayana practice. Our Chenrezig practice is very simple, but that in no way makes it lesser. It's wonderful. It encapsulates everything of all Vajrayana practice. All Vajrayana practice is a skillful means. It's a method that enables your teacher to help you free and mature your mind. Any practice can be made very complicated. It's said if you've got a really complicated student, you need to make their practice really complicated, otherwise they won't be satisfied. Or it can be very simple. It can be used as a vehicle for all the yoga transmissions, the inner work. It can be used as a vehicle for Mahamudra teachings, any practice. This Chenrezig practice, any practice, is a tool in the hands of a teacher. It's not a tool in the hands of the disciple. DIY Vajrayana never existed in the past. If you're not a native English speaker, DIY means do it yourself. Vajrayana depends on having a teacher. Always has done. And I don't see any new instruction from the Buddha that says all that's over. Sorry, but there's plenty other Buddhism you can do DIY. Vajrayana practice is a tool. Now this Chenrezig practice is very short. It has everything you'll ever need. And now that we start doing it today, seeing how we do it, that conviction that it is all you ever need is very important. It's part of our three qualities: clarity, purity, and confidence. Certainty. Then we've got the three T's: clarity, purity, certainty. All you ever need. So when you do the practice in Dharma centers, or sometimes if you get a book of the practice, text of the practice, then you've got stuff before, what Tangtong Gyalpo gave us. You've got stuff afterwards. Now, each part of those stuff, the prayers, wonderful blessings. For instance, many people do the short prayer to Vajradhara first. It's a very deep, very powerful prayer, and it brings the blessing of the Kagyu lineage into you before you do the Chenrezig practice. Many people do the Dewa Chen prayer afterwards. Very, very powerful seed sown in our mind that helps us when we die, that helps us help other people when they die, and is one of the four conditions, saying the prayer for rebirth in Dewa Chen. So each prayer, and like doing the long life prayer for the Karmapa, makes a connection so that in future lives you will be close to the Karmapa. That will be an amazing thing. So it's not in any way to put down all those prayers. And in Samiling, we had different people organizing the prayers. First it was Trungpa Rinpoche, then it was Akon Rinpoche, and then other people came and they were leading the prayers every day, Sherpa and Beru, and then they tended to add prayers that they themselves thought such blessing in this prayer, which means if you've got 3/4 of an hour of Chenrezig, actually it's not Chenrezig. You've got lots of prayers at the end. This one's long life, that one's long life, rebirth in Dewa Chen, maybe a quick bit of Tara at the beginning. It's like a pizza with everything. So what we need to know is that we are learning Tangtong Gyalpo's practice. In itself, it is totally complete. And it starts with refuge and bodhicitta, which when we do the prayer with other people, we do refuge and bodhicitta together. In the text I sent you, the very simple version, then we have the 4 lines. Sonje chodan soji chonam na jancho badu dani chapsunje dagi gomde jipe sonam jidrola penchera sonje dro parisho. And it says, do these 4 lines 3 times. So we do the 4 lines together. But now, today, when we start our training, then we will take the first 2 lines, which are refuge, and we'll do them again and again in a style which is called in Tibetan Dungom, which means meaningful contemplation. Dungom is based on words. So it's the dun, which means the essential meaning, the key point of those words. Gom means we contemplate. So we'll learn to do that. Now, in my very earliest meeting with Tibetan Buddhism, so we're back now in 1970 in Dharamsala with some Gelugpa Tulkus, one of them told me something that stuck and been very helpful. He said, look, Ken, we all know about impermanence, and of course we could all die tomorrow. But when you practice Dharma, practice it as though you've got all the time in the world and get it right. And for many reasons, that is excellent advice. Get it right, for me, means one Dharma word never comes out of your mouth without meaning. We never just mouth prayers. What you'll find when you've been meditating for a while is that you can do prayers and be thinking in parallel. And usually you're more obsessed with the thinking. Like if people doing prostrations, especially doing hundreds, doing thousands. You're doing the prayer, but you're thinking about your shopping list. You're thinking about what somebody else said, and you can go through the whole thing. Never do that, please. Please. Rather just stop. Rather spend 5 minutes doing the prayer once. When you say, Sanje, or I take refuge in Buddha, what the hell do you mean? In that moment, is your heart taking refuge in Buddha? And if it's not, then don't say it, because you're lying. You're saying, I'm taking refuge in the Buddha, and you're not. You're thinking of your shopping list. So you have all your life to make your practice meaningful, and then it will bring you benefit, even if you say just a few words. Akon Rinpoche said to me, and he said in public a few times, he said, one sentence might be all you ever need for your whole life. And yet you read hundreds, thousands of sentences everywhere, and they go in and they go out, and there's no benefit. So what we're learning to do, because I hope Chenrezig practice is going to be there for the rest of our lives, is to bring Chenrezig to life. So the first part is taking refuge. And what we'll be doing is the first 2 lines, the words of refuge. We'll say them once. And then we stop and we think about the meaning. And then, because we've thought about it, and dug out of our memory our moments of inspiration for refuge, why we took refuge in the first place. And then all the teachings on refuge that we are learning about. We never learn enough. I mentioned this last time at length. Buddha, the historical Buddha, how well do you know Buddha's story? The three kayas, how deeply have you understood them? Do you know what they really mean in terms of your own experience? What would it be if you met an Imanakaya Buddha? How would that happen? How could the manifestation happen in your life? And the difference between that and then deep in meditation, meeting Sambhogakaya Buddha. And then in Mahamudra, meeting the Dhammakaya, source of all of the Buddha manifestations. So we think about that. And then when we go back in the second time, say, Sonje Chudan Soji Chonama, Janchopata Danicha Suje. Then the meaning of our contemplation comes in it, and I hope our refuge is deeper. Now, how do we do this? We visualize. This is the speciality of Vajrayana. We use what in many other schools of Buddhism are outlawed. So often, if you learn shamatha meditation, it's like a gigantic throw out. Get rid of that, get rid of this, get rid of that. Thoughts, no. Focus. Imagination, memories of the past, thoughts of the future. Throw out, throw out, throw out, until you've thrown so much out, there's nothing left. So quiet. Start off busy, this thing, that thing. Mind is mad. It's a madhouse when you start. I mean, if we walked around with screens on our head that showed what was going on in our minds so that everyone could see, we'd never dare to go out in public. You really wouldn't. It's a madhouse to start with. So we're bringing some sanity into that. So imagination. What do we imagine? We're thinking about what's to come, the future. We're remembering the past, which is just images in our mind. And we're projecting onto the present, imagination and thoughts, and then longing for this, longing for that. All these things which are often banned, they can be very useful, powerful tools. We know how to long for things. I think most of us are very good at it. We're lifetime professionals. I've had 75 years training of longing for things. I'm very good at it. So we can use our ability to long for something worthwhile. We can long for enlightenment. We don't look and say, oh, there's a desire in my mind, there's a longing, get rid of it, throw it out. We say, if you're going to desire anything, long for a pure mind so you can help everyone. So we can use longing. And it's very powerful. It gets our juices going, makes our practice powerful. And then our imagination. If you look, once you have mindfulness, mindfulness of mind, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of everything. If you have mindfulness, you'll see how so much of your mind time is in imagining. Because through mindfulness, you've become very aware of when you are actually mindful of your body, touching, moving, when you're absolutely with your five senses. Those are rare moments. So what's happening the rest of the time? You're off in your imagination. So it's very powerful. Our imagination got us into our marriages, our human relationships, got us into our jobs. We visualized first. So we used the power of vision. And with the Chenrezig practice, we are making ourselves a sacred space of nothing but goodness, nothing but love, coming from the depths of our own mind, our own true nature. And we're going to make that space more and more helpful and relevant, more and more strong, like a fortress of well-being for ourselves. So this first part, Refuge and Bodhicitta, we visualize, we imagine, but I would rather say we totally feel, because as I mentioned before, some people, the way their brains are wired, they're very good at visualizing, and so they can make a mental image. And if they do the Chenrezig practice, they can look at a painting, a tonka or a statue, and kind of try to reproduce it in their mind. And already that's a challenge to do it very accurately. But some people can't. And the ability to mentally paint is not what we are talking about. It's about taking yourself to a place of mind, a place of heart, where you can experience something sacred and new, however you do it, whether you can see it clearly or not. We try to see clearly, it's always helpful, but if we can't, we don't feel like failures. So what we're going to do is imagine two things. One is that we are totally in the presence of Chenrezig. And the other, it is not just oneself who is totally in the presence of Chenrezig, but oneself accompanied by all other sentient beings. And as we go through the practice, what is happening to us in our visualization will be happening simultaneously for everyone else. And as I've mentioned so many times, very specially for our own parents and children, siblings, and those we're connected to in this life. Animals too. So for many reasons, we're doing it for them. So we are really feeling or visualizing that they're there. It's almost like you can smell them, feel the heat of their body next to you. Your father, your mother, brothers and sisters, and whether they're alive, whether they're dead, we are going in the Chenrezig practice to a place that's a bit beyond time and space, and where we can benefit everyone, whether they're still alive or not. Now, I'm going to use in part in this course some imagery from a project that unfortunately stalled. And so before Akon Rinpoche died, with my very good friend Greg in South Africa, we started, Greg's in audiovisual, so we started making a video of the Chenrezig practice to help people. And so the Chenrezig in the video, which isn't finished because it's a bit too solid, it needs to become transparent like a rainbow. But nevertheless, how Chenrezig was done in consultation with Akon Rinpoche and other teachers. So the image of Chenrezig is pretty good. And as we go through and we get to the inner visualization, then it will be helpful. A lot of work to be done. It's stalled for a few years now, but it will get done. And the project has the present Karmapa's blessing. He's seen it. So we'll be using that. And so maybe the next thing to do is to show you a bit of that. And I'll ask somebody to put a hand up just to make sure it's being shared. Can you see a monk just now? Yep, good. Okay, so this will go quite quickly. We're working on the monk or the nun. That's a long story, but anyway. So just at the moment in the graphics, you can see the monk is not in his room. When we do the visualization, we go into a transcendent space. We don't spend a lot of time visualizing it like you do if you do for instance, the prostrations practice. You visualize a grassy plain and a world where everything is pure and the water and the birds and everything in the landscape is so meaningful. Here, we are just in a very pure space. And then we're going to visualize Chenrezig in front of us. So let me just run this for a few seconds. Okay, so here there's us, and then in space in front of you, there is Chenrezig. Now, whatever image you use, this image, or if you use, let me just do that one more time. Okay. So you know what it's like when somebody's right in front of you, and maybe you've had the blessing, the experience of sitting in front of a very pure, very wonderful Lama. So there's a presence. You are very blessed if you've had that experience, and you know what it's like to actually feel. And so there I'd almost like to stop and go through lots and lots of stories about my time with the 16th Karmapa and how his presence, I mean, we took him to see prime ministers, we took him to see heads of religion. We traveled around Europe, and people who weren't at all Buddhist as well as Buddhists. Everyone was totally bowled over by his presence. We had in Dumfriesshire one place, we stopped once to get petrol, and the Karmapa had the window open, and the guy who ran the garage came and talked to him for years afterwards. He kept talking about that wonderful man you had in the car. So nothing much happened, but a lot happened. Everything happened. So if you've had that experience, wonderful. If not, this is what we are trying to imagine. It's not a mental exercise of erecting some kind of image in your mind. It is as though Buddha is right there in front of you. Not just Buddha, the compassion of all the Buddhas combined into one manifestation. As though every Buddha that ever was, ever will be, with all of their specific skills, is trying to help you feel the purity, the perfection, the completion of their compassion. So whether you can see it in your mind's eye, or whether you can just start to learn, because this is a learning process, to feel I'm this close to the Buddha's love, I'm this close. Then this is what we do. And why? We're going to take refuge because of all these beings, this endless, endless suffering. If I don't help them, who will? Who gives a damn? And out of those who give a damn, who's trying to really do something that helps, which means working on your mind? So difficult. So we're going to be taking a commitment because we love and care for all these fellow beings, your parents who gave you your life, this precious, precious life. And then so on and so on. So we are in the presence of Chenrezig. Now there are two ways we can do this. In one way, one Chenrezig, as you just saw in the image, is everything. You don't need anything else. Chenrezig all alone. So that Chenrezig is not just a blob, like in the video I showed you. Chenrezig's presence and radiance fills space as far as you can imagine. There's nowhere you could look or feel that's not pervaded by Chenrezig's loving compassion. Chenrezig's amazing serenity, seen it all, knows all the ways to help beings and so on. So just one presence of Chenrezig, filling the whole of space, is one way we can visualize. Another way, which is helpful for some people, is there is Chenrezig, same in front of you, but around Chenrezig are endless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Sometimes it says so many that their red and golden robes is like the most brilliant Hawaiian sunset, let's say. So, a tropical sunset. There are just hundreds, thousands of Buddhas dressed in red and saffron and yellow. And that gives us the feeling that Chenrezig is like the heart of all of them, of each one of them. Some of them are peaceful, some of them are wrathful, all of the various manifestations of pure mind to help us. All embodied in Chenrezig. So sometimes Chenrezig is there, and then endlessly all the other Buddhas and all the other Bodhisattvas of the levels. The main thing is that inside ourselves, we have the absolute conviction that Chenrezig holds everything we need to practice. That's why we're taking refuge. Not I'm taking refuge in Chenrezig, yeah, but I need one or two others to make it worthwhile taking refuge. Chenrezig's everything, because Chenrezig is the one embodiment of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas' compassion. So then we say, Sonje Buddha, Che Dhamma, Sonje Che Dhamma, Soji Cho, Soji Cho, the Supreme Assembly, Supreme Sangha, Bodhisattva Sangha. Namla, in those, Janchu Bhartu, until I'm enlightened. Japsunche, I take refuge. So we need refuge. We need help all the way along until we've gone through the Bodhisattva levels 1 to 10. And then when we're finally Buddha, there is no other refuge. You are your own refuge. There's no need for refuge. This goes very deep. So when we're training in fully in this first part, refuge, you need to know from the Mahayana Uttara Tantra Shastra teachings about Buddha nature, about deep refuge, and how only Buddha mind is the ultimate refuge, that even all the Bodhisattvas and all of the Dharma teachings are not the ultimate refuge. We need to learn those teachings at some time. And so Janchu Bhadu, until I'm enlightened, until our own mind is stable in the true nature, the heart of enlightenment, then we are taking refuge. So we say that, and then we stop and reflect about what we just said. Buddha, historical Buddha, three kayas Buddha, Buddha nature Buddha, Shunyata, and the Dharma, the 12 sections of Dharma, the 84,000 teachings, the three baskets, and Sutra Dharma, Tantra Dharma, all of the aspects of Dharma, the teachings of truth that will never fail, that are totally pure, and then the Supreme Sangha, those whose minds are stable within Shunyata, within Buddha mind. Those things that we'll learn more and more about now I'm taking refuge. Japsunche. I'm taking refuge. Not I'm saying, I'm taking refuge. I'm entrusting myself to those. And then for how long? Not for this session, not for this life. Janchubadu, until I'm enlightened. This is a profound commitment. Whatever happens to you, you've understood, because you're doing this practice, that we have had thousands of lives. We have hundreds of lives to come. So now, at last, in this pure space, for our love for all other beings, we are entrusting ourselves to Dharma and to the Buddhas. And so that comes from deep, deep, deep within. And when it does, it will come back in future lives and get you back here. It's a mess out there. It's karma. It's so strong. Imagine you have a lovely time each day sitting on the cliff tops where you live and looking at the water and feeling this is perfect. No worries. And you do that year after year. Maybe you'll be reborn a seagull and spend the next 100 lifetimes just gliding around thinking, how lovely. Free food in the water, you know. Wonderful. This human mind, we are alive with an opportunity to learn love and to become wise about karma. If we don't do that, we're just going to fall back into endless rebirths. Go out there, walk around, see every little thing that buzzes, that flies, that creeps in the earth, the cats that go through the bushes, everything. We are not even a billionth of the life forms on earth. Why have they all been reborn like that? Because they missed the opportunity. So now we are taking refuge in what is really meaningful and what will get us out of suffering forever and help us lead the way to others. So although we have our three aspects of purity, clarity, purity, and certainty, the first one, clarity, which means spending quality time making the visualization good, is not so important in this first stage. Chenrezig is there. We just need to know what Chenrezig is and to be our source of refuge. We don't need here to be thinking, Chenrezig's got eyes like this, and he's got what's the 5 Buddha crown look like, and then what's he wearing? That's not the important point here. Chenrezig is the embodiment of all the refuges. If you know that. And then the other thing we do is that because it's Vajrayana, whatever we visualize in any practice is always the manifestation, the link, yidam, mind link, with our guru. So if you have a guru, and then in our Kammakaju school, if you don't yet have your own guru, the Karmapa is our guru, or Taisitupa is the great Mahaguru of our lineage just now, then we think of them, their feeling. So it says, if you know the feeling of your guru, the feeling of Chenrezig is your guru's feeling, but it's like your guru has taken this very meaningful form. So let's do that a few times. Now, in the text it says do it 3 times, but when we're training, you could give a whole 1-hour session to this. Or maybe a week of 1-hour sessions until you got it, until something moves forward. You've grown a little bit. The meaning of the practice has bitten into you a little bit, so that now when you say those words, it becomes a sacred expression of something that's felt in your heart, and so on and so on. So you should have the text. I think I can put it on screen if you don't have it under your eyes. There we go. Small. This one. Okay. So we'll do what's in red, and we say it once, just those first two lines, and then we'll think about the commitment of refuge. I'm taking refuge, as it says, in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and the Sangha, until I reach enlightenment. Now, the reason we're taking refuge is called the Mahayana motivation of refuge, is because we care for all beings. The simple refuge is because we care for ourselves. At last, we're going to look after ourselves. I think I've got to do something about this, Ken. And so I need to take Ken to refuge. But now, because we care for everyone. Okay. Sonje chodan soje chonan la chan chol pandu dane chap sonji. Sonje chodan soje chonam la chan chol bandu dane chap sonji. Let's think about taking refuge in Buddha, all the Buddhas. Sonje chodan soje chonam la chon chon panu nane cham suji. Think about the Dharma. Sanje Chonan Soje Chonam La Chan Choyan Mado Dane Chan Sunshi. And about the Bodhisattva Sangha. And then we think about the meaning of I take refuge. To take refuge means to seek help, to seek protection. You know, refuge, like a mountain refuge, in the storm, in the cold, in the night. A place of goodness, a place of purity. So we are seeking support, shelter, guidance from the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Sanje Chodam Soje Chodam La Chan Choyan Mado Dane Chan Sunshi. Okay, thank you. So I think you got the idea. Of course, this is practice. We just need to practice it and practice it. Excuse me. Now, yeah, something in me wants to just stay with refuge and talk more and more and more about this part, but we need to move on. So then the next two lines are Bodhichitta. So remember, you're feeling as best you can. This is part of our training, our meditation. Chenrezig is right there. You could touch Chenrezig's lotus. The feeling of the love of all the Buddhas is right there in your practice room. And you are meeting it in a place in your mind which is above and beyond the manifestations of this life, a pure space where you're allowing yourself to interact. And Chenrezig in front of us with 4 arms and white form and one face and so on embodies everything we're taking refuge in. But now beyond taking refuge, we are also now giving rise to the Bodhisattva vow. Now, I know some of you have taken the aspiration vow, some of you have taken the practice Bodhisattva vow, but when we are doing the practice here, we imagine we're already there. So even if you haven't taken the practice Bodhisattva vow, you're a few steps ahead of yourself in time. If it's me, I'm the Ken who's taken the plunge and who's really decided to let go of samsaric Ken's life. And no matter what, all my future lives are dedicated to everybody. So we imagine that, we place ourselves already there, and now we're saying, Dagi gomde jipe sunamji, prola penchira sonje druparasho. Dagi, that means done by me, gom de. Gom means meditation practice, de means recitation of the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra. Dagi gom de, through my practice and mani recitation, jipe, however much I do, sunamji, through the virtue, through the power, the punya. Punya means power to influence our future lives. Through that, Drola Penchira Sanjay Druparasho, may I achieve enlightenment to benefit all beings. So when we do these lines, we are visiting what we already know, and then when we're outside of the practice, we are learning more about bodhicitta. Aspiration bodhicitta, practice bodhicitta. Practice bodhicitta mainly as the sixth paramita, and so on. We learn more and more, so much to learn about those. And we read the inspiring bodhisattva texts and look at the beautiful words of bodhicitta that express a feeling. You know, for instance, it says, today I'm born in the family of Buddhas. Like whatever it was like before, I was in this samsaric situation, that one, I was a human, I was a dog, I was married to him, married to her, whatever it was. Something wonderful happened. Your mind woke up. And Buddhas means those who've woken up. So today we feel really, now I belong to this. This is my true family. And many stories, it's like somebody, you know, a lost prince who suddenly finds the kingdom and so on and so on. Today I'm born in the family of Buddhas. So beautiful. And bodhicitta, we read, is like the best of all medicines. When we think how incredible medicines are, you're sick, and then this plant, this medicine can make you better. And your symptoms are gone, and the hurt has gone. Medicine is wonderful. Bodhicitta is like the best of all medicines. It's like an oasis on a long journey where you can take rest and refreshment. We read the Bodhisattva teachings. We feel inspired, like Buddha Shakyamuni was inspired. Remember last week we saw Can you hear me now? Yes. Oh, good. Sorry, there was a bleep there. Can you see me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So I don't know what you missed. Good. So we're doing the bodhicitta practice. We're saying the 2 lines of the prayer, and I put it on the screen so we can do it and then spend a moment of reflection together. So let me put the text back on. And so if I can see some lips moving, that will help. Dagi gom de jipe sunam di rola kanchira
Sanjay
druparashu. Think about bodhicitta, your own commitment through this and all your coming lifetimes to purify your mind, to help all beings. Tagil Gomde Jipesunam Jidi Drola Penjir Sanjay Think with loving care and compassion about the suffering that you see around you in your life, that you know is in the 6 realms. I think this is why I need to commit myself to enlightenment to help everyone. Okay, so this is what we do. Let me take this away. Again and again. So like I said in the previous sessions, then what we are doing, we are off the cushion, learning more. On the cushion, integrating what we've learned, what we've experienced into our practice. We're doing this with our Guru manifest as Chenrezig in front of us, Chenrezig in front of us, really there. And it's also a dialogue between you, the worldly person, and you, your ultimate purity. At the end of the refuge training, when you've done your 2 lines of refuge, then Chenrezig right in front of you radiates light that dissolves into you and into everyone around you, your parents, your children, your siblings, and so on and so on. And we spend a moment in a beautiful confidence that you have been given refuge, that you are in the hands, the protection of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and that the Dharma is there to be your guide from now on. Bodhisattva Sangha, we really feel the beauty of refuge. In the past, we've taken refuge in so many things, in wealth, in status, in human relationships, in nature, and so on. All that's in the refuge teachings. Now we feel at last we found the right place, not just for this life, for all our future lives. So we spend a moment, and it's like, you know, when you're in the sun on a beautiful day, you're sunbathing, and the sun comes into you, into all of your bones and your flesh, and you feel so good. The power of refuge from Chenrezig fills you and all of the fellow beings. And then at the end of our Bodhichitta, when we say the 2 lines, stop in reflection, say the 2 lines, stop. At the end of that, then we are given the Guru's blessing, we're given Chenrezig's blessing of all the Buddhas, that our Bodhisattva path holds firm in this life and will be our support again and again and again, life after life. Because that's how it works. If in this life we do it enough, it will come and rescue you in your future lives. Karma may be so strong that you may be 15 years old before it happens, or 20, or 30, or 40, or 50, but it will come back and get you. And thank goodness for that. At the end of Refuge and Bodhicitta, then either Chenrezig, or if we visualize Chenrezig and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas like this vast ocean of refuges, they dissolve into you. So not just the light has come to give you the strength, but now they dissolve into you. They're part of you. And as we do more and more practice over the years, we are going to shift our default me from somebody in samsara to somebody who's part of what is true and meaningful. The refuge is. So Chenrezig for now dissolves into us. And we sit quietly in the feeling of that blessing. See, when you do the practice in a shrine room with others, you don't have time for that. When we train on our own, or when we do the practice on our own, it's very, very, very helpful. So then now, I've got not much time left, but I want to move on to the next phase. In this first phase of Refuge and Bodhicitta, there has been, let's say, some distance between Chenrezig in front of us and ourselves. Now, Chenrezig is going to come a little bit closer and a little bit more interestingly closer. Because when Chenrezig is off there, right in front of you, facing you, and we can, in our mind's eye, you can look, it's like looking if you were sitting in front of Taisitupa's throne. You can look at his face, you can look at his robes and so on. There. Now Chenrezig, eventually, after a few steps of visualization, is going to be above our head. Now, I don't know about you, but my eyes here can't see above my head. So what are we looking with next? Well, not eyes, our mind. And more than that, we're tuning inwards more to feelings. So first, let's sit quietly and let your, let's say, awareness go to the space above your head. Nothing to look at, nothing to listen to, nothing to stretch your hand up and touch with your mind, with your imagination. We let our sensing ability, like you can, if you wiggle your toes now, you can sense your toes. If you wiggle your fingers, you can sense your fingers. If you can manage to wiggle your ears, I don't know if you can do that, but you can feel your ears, or you can sniff your nose like you're sniffing something. You're sensing it. Now we go to the space just above your head. In Vajrayana, this is where the Guru resides. Always there. It's the place of great, great blessing. So in the next stage, which is the generation phase of visualization, we are going to, step by step, bring Chenrezig into this sacred space. So when we train, we need to become familiar with that space. Sit quietly and to feel the space above the head. And once we've done that a bit, we are going to, with our imagination, construct a lotus. In the Karmapa's commentary, then he says, an 8-petaled white lotus. Now, if you've seen lotuses, they're a strange flower. They're very flat. They sit on the water, and they're kind of, there's a flat dais, and then the flower, the petals around the edge. So above our head, we are going to feel as though it's really there, a lotus of light. And clarity, purity, certainty. Now we start working with clarity. Help yourself. Get a box of paints. Paint an 8-petaled white lotus. Look at 8-petaled white lotuses in diagrams if you find one. Help yourself. So, for instance, if you paint one, you can look at it, then close your eyes, and then try and reproduce it in your imagination. So the clarity is to have this 8-petaled lotus above you. Now, why a lotus? What's a lotus? It's a flower that grows out of a muddy pool. I'm sure you've read about that. Now, the muddy pool is you in this body at the moment, right? This is the home of our 5 senses, and they've got us into a lot of trouble. And they've determined so much of our life. We see, hear, smell, taste, touch. Our body's got nerve endings, and it needs to put food in the hole in the front and all the rest of it. This precious human life can give rise to something so pure, just like out of these muddy pools in India or wherever. The lotus grows, and it's not a muddy lotus. It's immaculate. This life of ours can give rise to something so pure, so meaningful and beautiful. So this is what the lotus is. It's our potential. Meaning is purity. So clarity is we just, in our mind's eye, see a lotus. Purity is we know it means our purity. And certainty means we can identify with that. You know, some people, we feel so dirty. We feel so impure. We feel so imperfect. We feel so stained by our life. But the love and compassion inside you, embodied in Chenrezig, is there for all of us. And that's us too. And then also the lotus has open petals. It's our mind's ability to receive the blessing, the transmission, the presence of Chenrezig. So your homework until a fortnight's time is to become familiar with this space above the head. Of course, to practice Refuge and Bodhicitta. You can do that. It's quite straightforward. But now we are learning to be in the presence of this lotus. It's like this very helpful way to visualize, not to think, oh my goodness, I've got to construct a lotus. Relax. It's as though it's always been there. All through your life, you've been going round with a beautiful white lotus above your head. Just now's the time to see it and feel it. Okay, it's a visualization, it's imagination, but the truth of the matter, as through all the Chenrezig practice, everything that's represented is all your life, your primordial purity has been with you. It's been there with you every second. And now is the time to become aware of it. So we spend some time, the space, and then this perfect white 8-petaled lotus made of light above you, which has the feeling of so pure. It's like it takes your breath away. You can barely breathe. It feels so pure, not tarnished by any of the stuff of life, thought, feelings, passions, anger, pure. And then once we practice that for a while, on the flat bit in the middle of the lotus, there is a white disk of light. We call it a moon disk. And that recognition of our primordial purity will become the basis, the support for our awakening wisdom. So the moon disk that we need to practice clarity, purity, certainty. Clarity, just to actually visualize a moon disk on top of the lotus. Clarity. Purity, it feels like the wisdom that will come from recognizing your true, loving, pure nature. And certainty is to be absolutely certain that that is there, because this is going to become, in its own turn, the basis for Chenrezig manifesting above you. Anyway, that's for a fortnight's time. Let me, just to finish, share the video again. So we got this far. Can you put a hand up if you can see? Yeah, good. Okay. So now, sorry, this is just the video doing a tour around there. So now Chenrezig has dissolved into us at the end of the Refuge and Bodhicitta. And then above the head, there will be a white lotus. Now here it's got 16 petals. I don't know what we're going to do about that. But anyway, we are visualizing, feeling the presence of this lotus. You can see the green bit, the flat base in the middle of the flower. And then moon disk on top. Okay, thank you very much. So now let's dedicate what was useful in this session, and I hope we can all practice between now and the next session. Refuge, slow recitation, meditation, dissolving into your Bodhichitta, the 2 lines, reflect the 2 lines at the end. The blessing dissolves into you, then Chenrezig, and all the refuges dissolve into you, they're part of you. And then the space above the head, the lotus, and then the moon disk. Thank you very much. Sonam diye tamche zikpani, topnene pedranam pamchene. Jega nachi palak trukpayi, sipe sole drowa drowarisho. Janchup semcho rimpoche, ma jepanam jejuchik. Jepa nyampa me padam, kongne kongdu perwarisho. Gewa diye nyoduda, Chenrezig wang trukjone. Drowa chikjang malupa, de sala kaparisho.